Oh.
We believe we are live again. If you can hear us, so we're back on the air. And yes, Jackie.
Sorry, I just have a process question. I see that DFA and someone from Ben and Jerry's was supposed to be on, and if they aren't on, can we get written testimony from them so that we have an idea of whether they're supporting or coming up with extra ideas that we might look at? We had quite a good conversation with Travis and with Catherine, and I just want to make sure that we have the other groups
Understood. Understood. Trying is what is, we are trying.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, thank you. So we are back to hear from Ralph. And so Ralph, again, thank you for your understanding. And if you could identify yourself for the record, and we'll receive your testimony.
Yes, well, good morning. My name is Ralph Carlson, and I'm the Vice President of Corporate Quality, Milk Sourcing, and Sustainability for what we like to call Lactalis US Yogurt, which comprises the cultured products or yogurt processing division of Lactalis in the United States. We have a facility here in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and then we have the two former Commonwealth plants, one in Brattleboro, Vermont, and Casa Grande, Arizona. And we have several relationships with third-party manufacturers to produce our products. So we are both a organic and conventional milk processors. And I guess maybe the first thing I'd like to do is to thank the committee for inviting me to attend and to testify. I think these kind of collaborative efforts are essential to try to identify and come up with new solutions to make all parties associated with dairy in a more better position and more sustainable position for the longer term. Maybe I would start off a little bit to give you some background and then comment on the three proposals out there and give some additional information. So I mentioned to you before is that and I have to apologize. I am not a lobbyist. I'm not a government affairs person. I'm an accountant by training. So my presentation and deliveries may not be as eloquent and as well composed as others. But so I've been with Stonyfield here in Londonderry for the last 16 years, and has been a privilege to be here in New Hampshire and work with the team here. Like I mentioned, we have three facilities in Londonderry. It's primarily organic, but we do produce some non-GMO yogurt products for Brown Cow, the Brown Cow brand, who people are familiar with. The facility in Brattleboro is 100% conventional products, dairy products. And then the third facility in Casa Grande is a combination of organic and conventional products. And just to let you know is that our parent company and Lactalis US Yogurt, we're very bullish about our business, okay? And over the next 2 years, I only had it for the two facilities. We're going to be investing over $30 million in Londonderry and the Brattleboro facilities, whether it's infrastructure, improvements of wastewater, the utilities, or abilities to grow. Those who drive by the Londonderry facility, we see a push out of the building where we're going to put into more areas for filling lines. So we're very much present, and our company is very much committed to New England here. A little bit of a deeper dive on the yogurt category, and which we focus in on a lot. And this is the overall category, which includes conventional and organic. Is the last 3 quarters of 2021, the category was growing around 2% on a pound or tonnage basis. Okay, and then in the last part of last year, the inflationary impacts were being realized, and the yogurt category saw by the end of the year 6% increases in the price over the prior year for products, yogurt products on the shelf. That inflation now has hit probably around 13% over prior year of this last quarter of this year so far. But the yogurt category has slowed. We are now down a negative on a tonnage basis, down 3 to 4 percentage points. So I think Travis was referring to the inflationary impacts, consumers having to watch their spending more and maybe buying less. We're very much concerned about that, and we're following that very, very closely. In 2023, we're thinking that the category can continue to shrink, maybe to the area of 5 to 6 percentage points. Okay, so we haven't felt all the pain yet. With Lactalis US yogurt, we do have some opportunities, and we are going to actually be increasing the amount of conventional milk brought into the Brattleboro facility by 7%. And in Londonderry, we in 2022 probably increased the amount of farm milk, raw milk coming in by over 10%. And as I mentioned to you before, we have some third-party manufacturing. We have some availability or flexibility to insource. So there were some decisions to grow here more in the Northeast New England. The Londonderry growth was primarily a reflection, though, of changing how we handle and process milk. We were bringing in condensed organic milk from further distances. We went to what we call a reverse osmosis system that allows us to bring in more farm milk. But as a side note, there, one of our challenges is having enough organic milk that is local to us. Some organic milk is coming from out of the New England area because we are a relatively large processor here in Londonderry. As far as price impacts are concerned, I will highlight a little bit on conventional. In 2022, since we're a class 2 processor, a yogurt processor, our conventional milk price was over 50% higher than the previous year in 2021. Okay, I think there was mention about the C-weight prices. I think we're going to end this year around $25.30 for a base price for the milk coming in to Brattleboro, and compared to around $16.70 the year before. And going back, we looked at the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, that price is still 32% higher than a record price set in the previous 10 years of looking at the milk data here for New England. So lots of pricing pressures. We also have the inbound transportation, the outbound transportation. We had to compete in a tight labor market here in New Hampshire and in Vermont, and needed to respond. So we did take pricing action in the end of last year and the beginning of this year for our consumers, and that's where we have to watch. I think someone else mentioned that we may have hit the peak and what consumers would tolerate as far as price increases. Well, we're seeing actually a reduction of the purchases. Before I go into the 3 proposals, just some high level feedback on the conventional. When we look at here in New England, you look at the rest of the United States, and I think one of the last hearings I mentioned is we have to look at the pricing across the entire country. And I think there's different models and different structures, and some of the larger farms out west may have some advantages versus New England. But on the conventional milk, we have definitely gone as a country global. Okay, so a lot of the factors that we're seeing now on feed, with the war in Ukraine and such, but then also the prices of the commodities that make up the various class prices for milk are due to the fact that the United States has become a bigger exporter of dairy products, which is a good thing for commanding a better premium, but then we're more subject to the volatility that is occurring around the world. Okay, so around the world, milk production has been on a decline. They talk about New Zealand being peak milk. Australia has seen significant decreases in dairy. Europe has slowed, even though right now in the short term there is some popping up of production. But so we are definitely on a global market. The input costs are very, very high. It was mentioned about the price of the milk is high, but the input costs are high. I would say earlier in this year, maybe late 2021, earlier this year, the conventional dairy market, the farmers' margins I thought were pretty respectable. That pressure is now coming on to the conventional farmers all around the country. One thing that maybe you folks would want to look and research more is the role of processors in the United States and how it's managed globally. And my understanding is around the world that dairy processors are generally more sophisticated, they're more diversified. And in this country, processing has become more specialized. And for us to compete, the United States to compete longer term globally, is I think that model will need to be looked at. It's a little bit of a macro view, but it may boil down a little bit to New England here. And again, on a smaller level, when we come to New England, I think the scale, the size of the farms, the geography, the topography we have does have some challenges for the conventional farmer. But then when I'm looking longer term about climate change, drought, availability of the water in the West, I think there may be, the pendulum may over time swing back a little bit here for New England. On the organic side, everybody, like the conventional farmers, have been seeing the inflation, whether it's for their labor, their energy, their spare parts. But again, if I could underline anything most significantly, it was the feed. And from my interpretation takeaway is we're very reliant on importing organic feeds, particularly soybeans that we lost a source out of India about 1.5 years ago. And that has had a significant impact on the organic farmer. So one avenue I didn't hear talked about too much is looking at developing alternate supplies and more secure and sustainable organic feed sources for the New England organic dairy farmer. Okay, moving on to the 3 proposals. I don't know if I can make a big commitment yet. The devil's in the details, and I would really like to see more of specifics on the proposals. I think there was one where the processors and paying more for the producers. There was discussion about modeling it to similar programs maybe neighboring states. I think there may be some advantages and opportunities for New England, but again, before I could really say whether we're behind something like that, I would like to see something more concrete. The last piece, the third proposal was, payments or a price increase specifically for Vermont farmers or Vermont dairy programs. It's less relevant for Lactalis US yogurt, as the vast majority of the products produced or processed in Brattleboro are going outside of the state. Okay, we have this very nice little brand, the Green Mountain, but it does not represent a significant part of our business. And then, like I said, is the rest of the products being produced are more of a national distribution. So what we have to look at is how do we fare and compete on the national stage or scale there. But I think it was Matteo who brought up a couple of things. I believe for more regional or Vermont specific producers and processors, I see a lot of value in a program there in helping them along. If we look at Stonyfield's roots and history, we were at one time a very much smaller processor of dairy products and have grown to a national scale. I think it's great to have programs to support some of the smaller players and get them to grow and thrive. And I want to emphasize again, maybe a point he brought up, not specifically to this program, but the role of maybe the cooperatives in balancing. And you cannot underestimate or underplay the value of, let's say, these smaller processors who are trying to grow their business, and how impactful it could be if they do not have an outlet for balancing their milk. So I did not have, again, I go back to maybe point one. I'm not a I'm not a government affairs person. I didn't know exactly what you folks were looking to have, but um, we continue to support the alternatives to a margin coverage for the organic farmers. I think Travis spoke to that. And Britt Lundgren, who is our government affairs person, has been heavily engaged with the USDA and representatives regarding that work and opportunity, because there has been a divergence on the margins between conventional and organic, and usually in the past, when the conventional programs were paying out, the organic programs were at the same time a little bit stressed. There's been a divergence on that, and we need something specific for organic. Travis did talk about Caris, getting data from there. We have been pushing or asking the USDA for decades to track more organic data and statistics. That has not really been forthcoming. And I think Macaris is one tool, but trying to get more statistics nationwide for organic production costs, pricing would be helpful. Trying to come up with, we've looked in the past for feed in New England. We haven't come up with a successful factor there yet. But that is something, maybe this committee might want to see if we can make it less volatile for the organic producers. In Londonderry, I would say in 2021 and part of 2022, we were suffering a lot for hauling, or struggling there, and we seemed at risk of being able to pick up milk, or having enough trucks or drivers to pick up milk. I think the economy is changing a little bit, and that has loosened up. But working again collaboratively to try to find good hauling solutions and make the work attractive for the drivers. A lot of them are spending many hours picking up the milk, delivering it to a processor, and sometimes getting hung up there, and they have a very long days, and it's not attractive. If I could find an alternative way of holding stuff with a more reasonable lifestyle, a lot of people would take that. So we've been working on that, have come up with some small solutions for Londonderry, but hauling is something that was keeping me up a bit in 2021 and 2022. Beyond that, Travis did talk about the federal milk marketing order program for organic, and I think he characterized it as a tax. My simple interpretation is that since organic dairy farmers are part of the federal order pool system, the FMMO came up with a way of assessing either payments or credits based on the class structure for milk. So even though the organic milk is generally higher priced than the conventional products, there is a participation in the federal order pools. Travis was talking about lobbying for maybe the elimination of that for the organic farmers. Jackie, I think I caught you smiling a little bit, because if for the federal order system they cannot come up with a reasonable change or an agreement, my understanding is that the whole thing can unravel and fall apart. And while people criticize it, it's the only thing we have to criticize. One alternative, if people wanted to consider, that I have always thought about for organic processors' contribution to the FMMO, is maybe lobbying to get those payments that are put in by the processors and the handlers, so that's contributed actually gets paid out to the farmers. My simple understanding, and I could be wrong on this, is that the money that is going into the system, in the federal order system, on behalf of organic milk is being distributed to conventional dairy farmers. The organic farmers do not benefit from a pool, a producer price differential, or pool drawdown. Maybe one other alternative would be, instead of eliminating it, is have them participate or benefit similar to conventional farmers. And I don't know if what the original intent was. I was not around when it was really written up or drafted up. My understanding, there could be a small issue, is someone once told me anecdotally, I think, is that conventional farmers may benefit 5 to 8 cents a C weight for the organic contributions going into the federal marketing order pool. And what I was talking about would be a redistribution where a smaller pool of organic milk would get a bigger benefit, where Travis was talking about the tens of millions of dollars that the crop cooperative had contributed into the FMMO over the years. So hopefully not too disjointed, a little bit of a flow. But those are the big comments I wanted to share with the committee here. Thank you,
Rolf. Very, very helpful on every level. Appreciate it. We have it's 11:45, kind of hoping with questions we might be able to wrap up by 5 of, so we have a few minutes for the task force to do a little bit of planning for our next meeting. With that in mind, Jackie has had her hand up for quite a while, so we'll call on Jackie first.
Thank you. And thank you, Rolf. This was very helpful. I did have a question, because I've been hearing repeatedly that we're not able to get a grasp on national statistics regarding organic production and costs and all of that. And it's a hindrance to some of the things that you folks are looking to do. Aren't the organic farmers involved in the National Ag Statistics Program and the Ag Census? And if so, are you able to pull obviously you must be not able to pull that information out. On the flip side, I do know, working on the advisory council for NASS for 5 years, that you can hire them to do specific surveys of specific things, because we did it for agritourism in Vermont, and it was very, very helpful. So I'm just, so first of all, are the organic farmers supposed to fill out those ag census every 5 years? And if not, why not? But if so, that is a resource that you folks should be able to access. It does cost money, but you can develop your own survey and get the answers to these questions that you need, rather than waiting for the federal government to do something that they don't seem to want to do for you. And secondarily, I don't want to, I'm just going to push back a little bit, because Matteo made this same comment about support for the smaller farmers. I personally wouldn't support a program that would focus on size of farm. I think that the very fact that both of you mentioned that Agrimark balances for the smaller farmers and processors means that you need the larger farmers that are part of Agrimark to support Agrimark, as well as to be able to balance for you guys. So I see it as total synergy. I get a little challenged, and I understand where you're coming from. We were a small farm. We only milked 65 cows. But I just want to say that I hope we can, whatever the outcome is, we can figure out a way to get the organics in a better place, and figure out a way to make sure that all small farms go, small, medium, and large. But I'm more interested in the comments about the NASS, if you could respond to that. Thank you.
Well, okay, so I'll respond to your first comment. I need to look, so I appreciate your comment on that, Jackie. I do not know, so I will look into what is available through NASS, okay? I am just used to what I've seen on all the publications that have come out, and conventional is accumulated and sliced and diced and analyzed in so many ways more than I have seen in organic. I think Travis talked about here in New England, the UVM report now that NOFA has taken up, that we look at that for the farmer P&Ls and pay prices and such, so that data does not exist. And then with this initiative for margin coverage, it seems that it is very disparate across the country. All right. We have some folks out on the West Coast trying to gather data. So it needs to be consistent. And I don't know if we can get something accumulated across the country. But, I did note down your comment because it may have been something I missed. And then to your second point, let me refine that is I really would want it to emphasize more of the smaller processor, not necessarily the producer. And I think to your point about the producers, we need everybody to be on the dance floor there, small, medium, and large. So I'm sorry if I mischaracterized my statement. To me, though, is the processors. Again, you look at Stonyfield's history nearly 40 years ago. We were one of those small guys, and it became a big success story. When you're starting to talk about, identification of milk being sourced and processed and consumed locally in Vermont, I think there's a bigger connectivity or potential there with the smaller processor and getting them off the ground, and then processing capabilities. Some of these big companies not only balance, they balance for the farmers the milk. I don't know if they should be looking at assets to make available, and or maybe the state of Vermont creating more incubators for entrepreneurs or processors. As I think it's very, very important. And
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. John, you have a question?
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, Rolf, just a couple quick questions. One, my colleague on the Tunbridge Select Board is an Organic Valley dairy farmer, and his milk goes to Londonderry. So I guess Organic Valley or Lactalis buys a lot of Organic Valley milk. And I just wondered if you could quickly go over who you source your milk from, what co-ops, both conventional and organic.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
No, well, answer that, and then there's a little follow-up.
Okay, so and I'm sorry I didn't put that in the beginning. So for organic coming in Londonderry, and then actually for our third-party producers that produce the Stonyfield brand in other parts of the country, it's through Crop or Organic Valley, and through our direct supply here in Londonderry. In Casa Grande, Arizona, which was a Commonwealth plant that was purchased by Lactalis, we are bringing in some Crop or Organic Valley milk there. I implemented that this year, but they're on the West Coast, in the western part of the United States. There are other sources as well, and there were some legacies there. So I would say for the Stonyfield brand, it's Crop Organic Valley or our direct supply. We have 35 direct supply contracts, of which 25 are coming out of Vermont. And there was a processor in New England that left, and of those 35 farms, 8 came over from the former processor.
And for conventional milk? For
conventional milk in Brattleboro, it's through a large cooperative in the Northeast here, and then in the West, we're I don't know how much you know about dairy in Arizona, but in Arizona there's just one cooperative, unless you have direct supply contracts really to deal with in Arizona, United Dairymen of Arizona.
So my follow-up was just whether Lactalis has ever considered controlling or owning, vertically integrating the sources of where that milk's coming from. I mean, when you look at Organic Valley, they do that, and they also are in value-added market as well as fluid milk. But I didn't know if Lactalis has ever considered their better margins that way.
Okay, better margins. Let me see, how do I answer the question? So organic is still small, and Travis could give you a better number of what it represents of total dairy in the United States. Okay, and for conventional dairy, balancing is a nightmare or troubling and problematic. For organic, it's exponentially more complicated. So Yes, we could push for more vertically integration, but then we're not geared up that necessarily on the back end to balance. Okay. And in New England, and again, I'm not fully informed on this, but you know, maybe and it looks like Travis is off the call, but I think there's a demand for more milk in the New England area than there's necessarily supply. If you were to look at fluid consumption and such, you know, so there's milk coming from out of the area. So we have a great relationship with the cooperative, and it works out well. You know, we wanted to see with our direct supply if we could grow the supply. You know, everybody's getting out of dairy. It's an aged population, and you know, why do you want to get into dairy? We have the relationship with Wolf's Next Farm with the apprentice program, but then you know, I would say about half of the farms that are direct supply to us either transition from conventional to organic, or you know, became organic farmers. Very few, small number of people decided to get into organic dairy from out of the blue. But you know, back in 2014, we were looking at this and we were trying to grow, and it looked like one of the solutions was just bringing more milk from out of the region, which it's not value add to the hauling piece. You know, we're not a transport company, and you know, the freshness and the quality of the milk is much better if we can get it more local. So, you know, but I think we have a good piece where we look to deal with the cooperative, to go with our peaks and valleys of demand, and then the seasonality of supply and you know, demand from the dairy, you know.
Bobby?
Yeah, Ralph, this is Bobby. I think earlier you said you averaged out this last year about $25.30 hundredweight.
That is the base class 2 price on conventional.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Is there a surcharge on top of that for transportation?
Yes, we are paying a net premium to the co-op above the base class 2 price.
Is that for transportation or?
It's well, it comes in as well, there's a couple line items, but there's transportation is one of them.
Yeah, so you don't. What I'm trying to get at is the farmers are paying transportation cost as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you're paying and the farmers are paying, I mean, and other dealers or buyers are paying, seems to be nobody seems to tell us how much they're paying though. I mean, how much are we getting into transporting milk, say from St. Albans to Brattleboro?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can't say, you know, the co-op is then figures out what ultimately gets returned to the farmer. But what I can tell you is that, you know, we pay the federal order class price, which is class 2, plus a premium. There's also against that premium, but we're still a net premium. There are some incentives for receiving over the weekends, or you know, when there's excess milk, because you know, some processing facilities are only, let's say, 5 days. So as opposed to the co-op having to sell it at a distressed value or move it further, they will discount it, but it still is a net premium to us above class 2.
And did I hear you also say that you feel New England is in a deficit production area?
For organic milk.
Not
Organic. Conventional. I'm not that, Bobby, I'm not that close to it. And I know a few years ago, one cooperative, but a couple cooperatives in particular, were having difficulty with a spring flush and a lot of milk going into manure pits. So there was an imbalance, and there may have been some excess milk there for a while. You know, Yeah, there was some, how should I say, shifts as far as demand for conventional milk in the Northeast region that I think put stress on the co-ops and producers. And I think that has worked through. Again, the co-op, may be able to give you a better situation as far as the balance is concerned.
Thank you, Ralph. I know I shouldn't be the one to keep us, but I just, while we have you, can you give us in like summary terms, the market for your product from your different plants, Boston, New York, and nationally, percentage wise, ballpark, is the base of the market the urban areas of the Northeast, or is it pretty dispersed nationally?
Well, so if you're talking so if you look at Lactalis yogurt, and our big brands are the Stonyfield brand and the Siggy's brand. I wish I could say Green Mountain Creamery.
Just the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth.
Yep.
And
And those facilities are so then the Commonwealth facility is prior to Lactalis purchasing it, there was a factory built in Arizona, and I think it was partially an East Coast, West Coast customer solution piece, for the Commonwealth facilities, I would say it's probably a 60-40 split on conventional, for 60% of the conventional on the East and 40% on the West on dairy products.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ralph? Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
Appreciate all the information.
Well, we appreciate you facilitating these discussions. And like I started off is, I think through some broader collaboration with everybody involved, we have to try to find some good new solutions. So thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for hanging in with us. Thank you. So if we could, as a task force, just talk briefly about the future in our next meeting. Linda has circulated for our next meeting 2 weeks from tomorrow on December 20th. Do you know, Bobby, if we settled on the 20th or?
No, I don't. Linda hadn't heard back from many of you, thinking that we could hash that out today if the 20th was going to work for most of us. The 19th got back quite a few that couldn't make it on the 19th. So we're shooting for the 20th to try to stay away from what was coming the weekend of the 20th beyond. And so does the 20th look good to all you folks that are on?
Thumbs
Yep,
up.
Randy,
Good.
Mike.
Great. Good. Terrific. Okay.
I
So then
didn't
we
see
can.
Mike.
Yeah.
Can make it work.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
So that's good. So we'll shoot for the 20th. And I think that's our kind of our wrap up meeting to try to put our thoughts, into some type of form and see if we can kick it down the road to the legislature. This has a long trip. It's the last time we did this, it took quite a while.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll all still be around us if we move it to see the end of it in a positive way. But I think that's what we've got to work on at our next meeting.
So Bobby's mentioned that he and Mike and Randy will be in the legislative swirl after that, so that if we are to the point of being able to make a decision before the session starts, then that would be good. So that's really kind of the check-in to see where the task force is as far as making a decision for going forward. So really the agenda for the meeting would be task force discussion. And if anybody has any specifics to target or shape the discussion, please let us know and we'll build an agenda.
The other thing that I'd like to have you think about is last year, remember the task force suggested that we would pay the DMC premium payment on the program for Vermont farms. And we have about $1,000,001.
Yeah.
About $1,100,000 left from that. And that means it took 1.5 million to cover the premium cost. And I've already spoken to the administration a little bit about adding something at their level, but so it would involve the administration as well as us in the legislature, adding some money to what we got for a balance to cover those premium costs for this coming year. And I think, did you have the numbers, Dan?
Yeah, so we'll have that as a second item on the agenda, and I'm hopefully we'll have some numbers as far as the cost, the participation last time, and expectation is there'll be greater participation next year because the forecasts are for the program to return significantly more next year than it did this past year. So likely more producers will sign up next year than signed up this past year.
So, just something that we'll need to chat about at the next meeting. And I don't know if there's certain things that any one of you might have that we have, that we'll try to cover all the bases, but, if you've got something.
Please let us know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, thanks, guys. The only thing that I'm a little frustrated and disappointed in is that we were also going to talk to consumers. And I don't know how you do that. I think we heard a lot of anecdotal information today from the processors about that last option. But we also have heard that the value added, some of this stuff is just, people are picking and choosing because of inflation and because of a possible impending recession. So I don't know how we get a hold of a consumer advocacy group. I don't even know who it would be. And it's probably way too late down the line, but I just asked the committee members to keep in mind that you did hear today from processors who sell value added that they are having challenges selling their products. So I'm just going to have to ask that we use that as possibly consumer input. It's on the other side, but they are clearly feeling the pressure. And because we didn't have the ability to speak with or to listen to any consumers, I guess we're just going to have to take that at their face value. Thanks.
Thanks. Unfortunately, we're kind of bumping up against the time. Randy?
Just a comment to reinforce what Jackie has said. My biggest concern from what I heard today was the potential impact on markets that by raising prices through overorder premiums or what have you, we could have some effects on farmers that are perhaps unanticipated by the effect on demand. We heard from one economist who was employed by a producer. We haven't heard anything from an independent economist. And one of the things that might be worth at least a brief conversation is with the state economist, Tom Cavett, just briefly to get any input we can about the customer effect of these kinds of price increases. Although I know it's obviously very late in the game to get anything on the record, but for the future, that would be something that I think would be worth doing.
Absolutely. It was in the plan, but we've hit the wall. So here we are.
Yep.
And we have to take into account the state of our record in making a decision and see where we go based on the record that we have. And that's what we can talk about at the next meeting.
And the other thing, were you on when we first opened the meeting, Randy?
Not at the very first second of it, no.
Well,
I came in about 15 seconds late, I think.
15 seconds.
Well, 15, 30, something like that.
Oh, well, you didn't miss much, but, you know, is this process, if we decide to move it forward, you know, the last time we did this, we held, I bet you in total 25 to 30 hearings, and we had, we bumped up against your question in Massachusetts big time. And there was a consumer group down there.
Yeah.
But like the food bank or some of these, like Hunger Free Vermont crew, or some of them may have something that they could report to us. I can't remember the consumer group in Mass.
It was Acorn.
Acorn.
Yeah, we heard from Acorn. And we also, you know, to your point, Randy, to get the economists involved that aren't to the interest groups, you know, would be helpful to get that disinterested analysis as well. And including, you know, more information on the cost of environmental compliance that Mike teed up for us. You know, that would be additional information that would be really useful for this discussion. So. So
Anyone else?
appreciate that people can make it on the 20th before Christmas, and maybe hopefully we'll have some snow on the ground by then. And so we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.